สวัสดีค่ะนักเรียนทุกคนในบทเรียนนี้เราจะมากล่าวถึง introducing other people ค่ะ Key language introducing other people you can also use polite formal and informal phrases to introduce your coworkers to each other ก็คือนักเรียนสามารถใช้วลีที่สุภาพนะคะวลีที่สุภาพอย่างเป็นทางการและอย่างไม่เป็นทางการในการแนะนำเพื่อนร่วมงานให้รู้จักกันได้นะคะ Introduce your coworkers to each other. This is a formal introduction and this is an informal introduction. นักเรียนดูตัวอย่างประโยคของ formal introduction นะคะ May I introduce Maria Diaz?Maria is a sales manager for Europe. It's good to meet you, Maria. It's a pleasure to meet you too. Okay. นักเรียนดูฟัง This is an informal introduction. Amit meet at what? At what? Amit and I work together. Glad to meet you at what? Okay. This is a formal introduction.I'd like you to meet Sue Carr. It's nice to meet you, Miss Carr. Use this is to introduce other people in less formal situation. For example, this is my new assistant, Levi. Hi, Levi. Good to meet you. ค่ะจากสไลด์ที่ผ่านมาก็เป็นตัวอย่างการแนะนำบุคคลอื่นให้รู้จักกันนะคะครูก็สรุปได้ว่าการ introducing others แบ่งเป็น2รูปแบบด้วยกันเลยนะคะรูปแบบที่1การแนะนำบุคคลอื่นแบบเป็นทางการ formal introduction ตัวอย่างประโยค I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Desha.I'd like you to meet Miss Supporn. John, may I introduce you to Miss Sopa Sangduen? Let me introduce you to Miss Sopa Sangduen. I'm pleased to introduce Miss Sangduen. โอเค นี่คือตัวอย่างประโยคการแนะนำบุคคลอื่นให้รู้จักกัน ต่อไปเป็นการตอบรับหรือ responding ใช้คำว่า How do you do?Nice to meet you. Glad to meet you. Pleased to meet you. โอเค นักเรียนออกเสียงตามครูนะคะ How do you do? Nice to meet you. Glad to meet you. Pleased to meet you. รูปแบบที่2การแนะนำบุคคลอื่นแบบไม่เป็นทางการ informal introduction เราจะใช้เพื่อแนะนำเพื่อนสนิทหรือเพื่อนที่คุ้นเคยให้รู้จักกันซึ่งจะใช้ Hi หรือ Hello นำก่อนชื่อเพื่อนหรือไม่ต้องมีชื่อเพื่อนก็ได้แล้วก็ตามด้วยประโยคต่อไปนี้เช่นนะคะตัวอย่างประโยคระหว่างเพนกับ Peter และก็ Laura คุยกัน Hi Peter this is Laura she's my cousin Laura this is Peter my classmate Hi Laura pleased to meet you Hi Peter pleased to meet you too โอเคตั้งแต่เห็นไหมคะใช้ Hi หรือ Hello นำก่อนชื่อเพื่อนHi Peter Hi Laura Hi Peter เห็นไหมคะนักเรียนลองฝึกอ่านตามครู1รอบค่ะ Hi Peter This is Laura She is my cousin Laura This is Peter, my classmate. Hi, Laura. Pleased to meet you. Hi, Peter. Pleased to meet you too.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from Ingvid.com. In this lesson, you'll learn how to introduce yourself and also how to introduce people who don't know each other. Now, sometimes you learn a lot of English and you still feel nervous. You don't feel confident doing simple things. So this is one of those simple but important things that you need to be able to do. To be able to walk up to someone, to introduce yourself, and also to know how to respond when someone does that. And that may be true whether you're at a business conference or at a party. Okay, so let's get started. So here, first, we'll talk about the formal situation. So let's say we'll start over here. Hello, I'm Bill White. The response is, hi, I'm Susan Jones. So he says then, it's a pleasure to meet you. And she says, it's a pleasure to meet you too. Okay? Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Why? Because especially at this part, we're just repeating what the other person says, except that you're adding the word to. Okay? Let's try it again. Hello, I'm Bill White. Now, at that point, you probably want to also shake hands. So let me mention that. So the things that you should do in addition to what you're going to say are these things. You should try to maintain a straight posture because you look more professional that way, especially in a business situation. In a North American context, also, we establish eye contact. All right, that shows that we're not afraid. That shows we're not hiding anything. All right, shows confidence. And you want to give a firm handshake. Okay, don't keep your hand really weak. Keep it firm, not hard. Don't squeeze the other person's hand, but make a firm handshake. And this is true whether you're a man or a woman. And usually we smile because it's a little bit, it shows that you're a friendly person and you're happy to meet the other person, even in a business situation. So let's get started. And what I was saying is about the handshake, you could shake hands right here. So you could say, hello, I'm Bill White. Or you could say it at this point when you say, it's a pleasure to meet you. Okay? Hello, I'm Bill White. Hi, I'm Susan Jones. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you too. And if you want, one thing you can do is to mention the person's name when you're saying it's a pleasure to meet you, okay? But sometimes in a business context, you're not yet sure whether to say Ms. Jones or Susan, so you could try it. And you could say, it's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Jones. And she might say, oh, you can call me Susan. It's a pleasure to meet you too. And so on, okay? But main thing is, this part is just repeated. Next, in an informal situation. So here, instead of saying hello, we're just going to say hi. Hi, I'm George. Hi, I'm Maria. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Again, we're just repeating. So what happened? Here, it's a little more formal. So we said, it's a pleasure to meet you. And here, because it's informal, we just said, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Okay? So just repeat that. And also, instead of hello, we're just saying hi. All right? Hi, I'm George. Hi, I'm Maria. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Okay, so try that. Next, I'll show you how to introduce people who don't know each other. So let's see how to introduce people to each other. First, we'll do this in a formal situation, okay? So let's pretend in this scenario that there are three people. You are Carol Smith, and you know Scott Topper, and you know Stephen Shaw, but they don't know each other. But you don't know that, so you have to find out first, because sometimes people do know each other. So Carol is going to speak first. So Carol knows both of them, all right? So she says, Carol Smith says, have you met each other? So let's say she turns to one of them or to either of them, and she says, so Scott answers, and he says, no, we haven't. Sometimes this person will answer, sometimes both of those people will answer kind of at the same time, say, no, we haven't. Doesn't matter. And then Carol says, if it's a formal situation, Mr. Topper, this is Mr. Shaw. Mr. Shaw, this is Mr. Topper. Now, sometimes this part is not necessary because it's kind of obvious. So usually if you just say the first part, people will start introducing themselves then to each other or continue with the pleasure to meet you. But if you want to know the traditional way in which it's done like that. Okay, so Mr. Topper, this is Mr. Shaw. Mr. Shaw, this is Mr. Topper. And at that point also, when you're deciding whose name to say first, some of the rules of protocol are that if there is an older person and a younger person, you introduce the older person to the younger person. Okay, so let's say in this situation that Mr. Topper is older, then you would say Mr. Topper's name first. If they're both about the same age, it doesn't matter. Okay? So then Mr. Topper, remember the earlier lessons we learned, what we learned just now, the expression, it's a pleasure to meet you. And Shaw says, Pleasure to meet you too. Okay? You don't always have to repeat the entire expression, it's a pleasure to meet you. Even in a formal situation, it's fine to say, pleasure to meet you too, because that's the critical part. All right? So now that's the formal scenario. Let's go through it one more time. Have you met each other? No, we haven't. Mr. Topper, this is Mr. Shaw. Mr. Shaw, Mr. Topper, it's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too. And remember, at this point, when Mr. Topper says, it's a pleasure to meet you, that's when Mr. Topper will put out his hand for the handshake, and Stephen Shaw will take his hand and shake his hand. Now, if it's an informal situation, it's pretty much the same way at the beginning. Have you met each other? No, we haven't. So then you can say, Scott, this is Stephen. Stephen, this is Scott. And then they will use the informal expressions. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Okay? So these expressions, pleasure to meet you, nice to meet you, they can take you a long way in introducing yourself and in introducing others. Now, of course, there are many ways to introduce yourself. Not only what I've said here, not only what I've taught you here, but I always advise my students that it's better to learn one way properly than to learn 3 different ways and then get mixed up. Okay? So make sure you have mastered one way to introduce yourself and to introduce other people, and then you could move on to other variations, because you are definitely going to hear a variety of variations on this. Okay? So if you'd like to practice this a little bit, go to our website, www.ingvid.com, and you can do a quiz on how to introduce yourself and how to introduce other people. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.
ค่ะนักเรียนเป็นยังไงบ้างคะตัวอย่างการแนะนำตัวเองแบบเป็นทางการและแบบไม่เป็นทางการพร้อมทั้งการแนะนำบุคคลอื่นให้รู้จักกันแบบเป็นทางการและก็ไม่เป็นทางการด้วยหวังว่าในบทเรียนนี้นักเรียนจะมีความเข้าใจและสามารถต่อยอดไปในบทเรียนถัดไปได้ค่ะแล้วก็เจอกันในบทเรียนหน้านะคะและอย่าลืมทำแบบฝึกหัดที่อยู่ในระบบด้วยค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ